Time for Kings Weekly.
He's got the bucket.
Recapping the week that was, previewing what's ahead, and looking at the biggest stories surrounding the team.
Here's your host, Chris Watkins.
Welcome, Sacramento Kings fans, into Kings Weekly, the show that brings you Kings talk every week, once a week, hence the title. You can check us out on Sacktown Sports 1140, traditional radio, AM 1140. Check us out on the Sacktown Sports 1140 YouTube page where we are live. You can get in the chat. For those who are watching right now, we're using Deuce and Mo's nice little lighting setup. They dropped over some lights this week, so I like to think that
no one tell them we're using it.
Yeah, please do not inform Deuce and Mo that we're using it. We're not supposed to, but no, I'm kidding. It's been an incredibly eventful week, not just here at the station with the debut of Deuce and Mo and our 6 to 6 live and local lineup. There's been a ton of Kings news that popped off this week. We might not get to some of it. I think we probably won't have time to get to the fact that Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox graced the cover of Slam magazine this week. You can pick that up right now, I think, at slam.com. That's huge, just for, speaking to the notoriety, the national media attention that people are always craving for here in Sacramento, or clamoring for, I should say, here in Sacramento. It's good to see Domas and De'Aaron get their shine on the cover of that. I believe that they're the first Kings players to make that cover since DeMarcus in 2016. So it's been a good, healthy amount of time since the Kings have graced the cover of Slam magazine. Obviously, there's iconic covers of Chris Webber and Jason Williams, both independently and together, that were huge for the early 2000s Kings fans, and now we get our own version with this hopefully soon to be playoff team here in Sacramento. The biggest news is actually from the week from off the court, which is usually something bad. Usually if you're saying the biggest news of the week is an off the court issue or thing, it's generally going to be a bad thing. But this could not be a better thing, something that all Kings fans were clamoring for. They've been clamoring for it for about a year and a half now, wondering when the day would come that their general manager, Monty McNair, would earn himself a contract extension. That news dropped this week on Tuesday. It was released from Adrian Wojnarowski that the Sacramento Kings would extend the contract of Monty McNair, who has been working all year on an expiring deal. So there was just a lot of confusion and questions as to what Monty's future held and how that could potentially affect what he does here at the trade deadline. Obviously, if he doesn't have any security on his own future, he's not going to be afraid to possibly leverage the Kings' future, because as far as he was concerned, he wouldn't be here in 3 years if he were to trade the Kings' next 2 first-round draft picks or something. So the fact that Monty is now locked up, he has a little bit more interest in the future of this team now. It'll be interesting to see. We'll talk a little bit more about the trade deadline later in today's episode, which is coming up. Which, ladies and gentlemen, buckle up, because the trade deadline, we are 2 weeks away from the NBA trade deadline, and things are going to get real hot here coming in a second. But let's stick with Monty, who did earn that 3-year extension. Sam Amick reported shortly after Woj broke the news that it would be a 3-year contract extension, marrying him with Mike Brown, and I believe De'Aaron Fox as well. So they're all on a similar time frame here. Domantas Sabonis has this and next year left on his current contract. So there's definitely a timeline here that all these guys are sort of fitting into. And, it's good to see, especially with the team succeeding the way they are now, that all these guys are on the same timeline, focused on the same goal, and hopefully now achieving it all at the same time. Before we get into the things Monty has done to earn himself this extension, let's first hear Monty was on with Dave and Jason earlier this week to talk about his contract extension and his hopes for the future for this team.
We've talked about
not just telling fans to trust us because we don't have a track record to go on as a new front office, and we wanted the results to show and speak for themselves. And I think all this does is say that our group is now tasked with the next set of challenges that are going to come up over the next few years. And obviously, we're excited about where we're at to start this season. That starts with the rest of this season, like you said. Knock on wood for a playoff push here, and then the good thing is that expectations will move. Our expectations will move, and it'll be a new set of challenges that we'll be tasked to accomplish. And thank you to Vivek and everybody for giving us that chance to prove ourselves.
Yes, absolutely. And there is a whole new set of challenges now that Monty is going to face, and it'll be interesting to see, like I mentioned, with the trade deadline right around the corner, how he treats these next couple weeks. Will he be focused on the team's success for this season, or are we going to see kind of more of are they going to stand pat even? I think that the much larger chance that Monty tried to do something drastic with an expiring contract, that now that he has the security, maybe he doesn't feel the urge to, obviously I'm going to talk a little bit about Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes is on an expiring contract. If Monty's also on an expiring contract and he's trying to earn himself something, maybe he doesn't see why not trade Harrison, because I need to earn myself something. I need to earn an extension now, and we just don't have to worry about that anymore, and that's great. This is a very welcome side. I think a lot of Kings fans are happy to see Monty stay. Monty has been like a real professional. I should also mention Wes Wilcox, his assistant general manager, is also getting a contract extension. Wes is very very face forward, I guess you would say. You see Wes almost more than you see Monty in terms of, at games. He's always mucking it up on the floor pregame. You can see Wes at just about every home game. He makes just as much trips as Monty does as well on the road. So Wes is an incredibly prevalent figure in this front office, and he will also earn himself an extension as well. Let's go through the Monty McNair tenure so far. Not necessarily every single move, but just the highlights, just to talk about how we got here. Monty was first appointed in the COVID season, in the delayed season or delayed off season that was. So he actually got his job in September of 2020, right after the bubble season and all that craziness that now feels like it was years and years ago. So Monty gets the job in September and is instantly faced with a decision, an incredibly tough decision that I think is still pretty polarizing amongst Kings fans here today. And that was the Bogdan Bogdanovic restricted free agency saga. And it really was quite the first experience for Monty to go through. Bogey had served pretty decent years here in Sacramento. I think a lot of fans wanted him to stay. There was questions with Buddy Hield's contract and Bogey playing the same position as Buddy, if they could play together, how financially that would work, if that's a good enough backcourt to really lock down. And ultimately, Monty had to come in and kind of blindly make a decision based off of what he knew about the Kings and about Bogey from afar. And what he initially drew up was a trade with the Milwaukee Bucks that would sign. It would be a sign and trade, and the Milwaukee Bucks would receive Bogdan Bogdanovic, and the Kings would get back Dante DiVincenzo. And I don't think there was ever like an official release on the exact parameters of that trade, but it was something built around essentially that swap. And then mayhem ensues after that. The league comes in and says, oh, well, how did the Bucks have conversations with Bogey when free agency hadn't started? All that mess that typically goes around during free agency. And it ends up falling through the cracks. Monty can't pull off the sign and trade. His first move as a GM is kind of crashing and burning in front of his face. He ends up losing Bogey. Bogey signs an offer sheet with the Atlanta Hawks. He has a couple days to match, chooses not to match. The rest is kind of history. Bogey goes on to Atlanta. And, besides some injuries, has had a pretty solid stay there in Atlanta. But I think a lot of Kings fans would have been happy to see Bogey stay. I personally don't blame Monty at all for the decision. It was a really quick decision, and ultimately, I think his reasoning was it would have hampered them too much, and it would have kind of hamstrung a guy who's coming in to make a lot of moves. And with Bogey lockdown and Buddy lockdown, it definitely would have handcuffed him quite a bit. So he had to move on from there. That's just his first move. Then a couple months later, drafts Tyrese Halliburton in what is unanimously probably the best pick in that draft. For him to get Tyrese at 12, it wasn't necessarily like Monty had to do some deep dives and find some, like a Bo Cruz situation in Hustle where he's, going through the tough scouting process or anything like that. It was very clear that Tyrese was the best player on the board. It was a shock that he fell to 12. Monty made sure he didn't fall any further. So he absolutely gets credit for that. More on the Tyrese Halliburton of it all later. But so he makes that draft selection. Later in the year, the Kings are kind of struggling again. We're trying to see, is this Luke Walton thing going to work out? This team clearly has been together a couple years, feeling a little stale. Monty deals Nemanja Bjelica for Mo Harkless and Chris Silva. Chris Silva never plays. Mo Harkless, had his time here in Sacramento. He also trades a second-round pick for Terrence Davis. That's an A. I know TD had some character issues coming into the Kings, had some things off the floor that definitely affected his trade value, but it was a low risk, low reward kind of move for Monty, and I think TD's been a very good player even to this day for the Sacramento Kings. He then trades Corey Joseph, a veteran who's long in the tooth and really wasn't providing much for the Kings, gets DeLon Wright out of him. DeLon Wright then in August gets flipped for Tristan Thompson. That will come back right here, as then in February of 2022, here it comes, the big one. Monty McNair trades Tyrese Halliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson for Domantas Sabonis, Justin Holiday, I always forget which Holiday, and Jeremy Lamb as well. And then, also trades Marvin Bagley for Dante DiVincenzo, who he eventually gets, and Trey Lyles, who has been a great contributor on this team, trades Mo Harkless and Holiday and a first-round pick protected for Kevin Huerter. That's how we end up with Kevin Huerter here. I should also mention Monty's other draft picks besides Tyrese. Took Davion Mitchell. I think, Davion at the least is a solid contributor to this team. Is he your typical top 10 draft pick in terms of potential? No, but I think he was the most NBA ready now guy, and the Kings, who were a team who desperately needed defense. I think you can draw the lines and connect the dots to see why Monty would select Davion Mitchell. And then with number 4 in this past draft, Monty takes the most pro-ready guy that he believed in, and that was Keegan Murray, over some other guys like Jaden Ivey, like Benedict Mathurin, like Jalen Williams as well. There's a lot of guys that Monty could have gone with number 4. But for him to firmly believe in Keegan and what Keegan would provide, I wasn't a Jaden Ivey guy. I was a Chet Holmgren guy. But that clearly was not part of the equation. But for him to see the vision of Keegan on this roster, and frankly, Keegan fits perfectly right now into what they're trying to do in the offense they're trying to run. You gotta give Monty his credit for what he's done and the tough decisions that he's had to make along the road. The draft pick of Tyrese might have not been a hard one, but then to eventually move on from, that's your golden child right there. That is your proof of, hey, I'm a great GM. Look, I brought us this guy. And then for him to really have the confidence to be like, not only am I willing to move on from my greatest success, but I'm willing to take a risk nationally, locally, and move him for a piece that I believe in that can really tie all this thing together. And it really has. Say what you will about how much Tyrese would have, been fun to have on this team. I think it's very clear that this team right now needs Domantas Sabonis. And I don't know if Tyrese Halliburton is on this team right now, the Kings are sitting in the position that they are sitting in right now. So good stuff to have Monty locked down for the future. And, glad that to put all that in the past, because I think people were legitimately concerned at how that was going to play out. All-Stars got announced earlier this week, and the Kings were snubbed in the starters list. We're going to talk about if we can see our two potential All-Stars make the list coming up here next on Kings Weekly right here on Sacktown Sports 1140.
Okay, let's try this. This is not going over.
Do I need to turn my mic on?
You can hear me?
Yeah. I can't hear you.
I turn your mic on.
Oh, wait.
I can hear you. Are you an ox?
Okay, talk.
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you
Boom.
hear me?
Yes.
Yeah?
Should my mic be on or should it be
No,
on?
it's on. Yeah. It's just as long as it's out of program.
Okay.
Program's what goes over the
And
air.
you're going to tell me when the breaks come.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
We got 30 seconds here, so this
Great.
is just a test
This
run.
was a test.
Chat, if you can hear us, give us some sort of
Give us thumbs up.
give us something, chat.
We're trying to do some
Let's
movies.
see.
So can you hear us in the chat?
I can hear both of you. Let's interact here in the chat. Okay, we definitely will in the next break.
Great.
This is just a tease.
This is just a tease.
We got some questions for you guys. Cool. Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening.
Throws it ahead to Kevin Herter. He gives to Sabonis, back to Herter, hesitates, drives, kicks to the wing. Keegan's on the right side. He's in attack mode, going strong on the reverse. He scores with the left hand. Diagonal cut, right wing to the low post left. And Murray makes it a 1-point game at 16-15 as he scored the last 5 for Sacramento.
We'll get to Keegan Murray later as well. I've got some apologies I gotta get out. We'll get to that next segment. The All-Star starters were revealed earlier this week. I believe it was yesterday, actually. And, you know, no surprise here. Kings disrespected. Can't believe it. Honestly, I really can't. I thought Domas was a lock for a starter. And it might have been a little, you know, maybe a little bit biased of me, but it for what Domas was doing this year, it felt like it was undeniable that he would be recognized as an all-star starter, especially with the injuries. I didn't think, you know, I should list it out here. The starters, I'll just do the Western Conference. The starters for the Western Conference that were announced, Steph Curry, makes sense. Steph has been incredible. He did miss about a month with an injury, but he's back now. The Warriors are back to looking dangerous again, so that makes sense. Luka's numbers speak for itself, so I don't even need to mention Luka. Obviously Braun's popularity, his numbers speak for themselves. Jokic is probably on his way to a third consecutive MVP season. That is no surprise. But Zion Williamson, and I love Zion. I am a huge Zion guy.
That one bothers me.
It bothers me. It bothers me too. It just, he's missed a lot of time this year. The Pelicans, frankly, have been good with and without him. And if you watch this, and it's a popularity contest, sure. But for what Domas has done for this team this season, I mean, if you look from last season to this season, two biggest differences are coaching and Domas is here. And everything is ran through Domas. And it's very clear, and it was clear in the one game Domas missed the other day, that without him, it's a completely different offense, and it's a completely different team. And, you know, that more speaks to value and probably where Domas should fit on the MVP ladder, you know. And I've talked about that in the past. I don't think he's a top contender for MVP, but if we're talking who is in the discussion, I think Domas is deserving of at least a mention in the MVP discussion. But for him to not get this starter is, you know, it's not the end of the world for sure. But it definitely leaves a sour taste in my mouth. And, you know, it's not the end all be all. I will almost say he'll definitely make the team. But for him to not get the starter nod definitely is a little bit disheartening. They did also release how how the voting broke down between fan, player, and media. The fan vote, which is just I talked about it with Frank and Deuce and Mo yesterday on our Kings Roundtable, but fan voting honestly they need to change something about it. It can't have it. They either need to reduce the percentage, where right now it counts for 50% of the vote, or it just needs to not be every starter, because fans just don't. That's how the Austin Reeves get in. That's how the Kevon Looney gets in. That's how Andrew Wiggins got named a starter last year. This year, Domantas Sabonis finishes 9th amongst fan votes, 5th amongst player votes, and 3rd amongst media votes. Quite a discrepancy there. And I'm sure Domas would much rather prefer the opinion of the players over fan and media. So, technically, he's just missing out of being a starter for the player votes, because it is, you vote front court, back court, and 3 front courts make it and 2 back courts make it. So if he finishes 5th, that means he was 2nd place in terms of, or 2nd alternate in terms of starters. So it seems like he's right in line to make the reserves. The reserves, it's another 2 back court and 3 front court, and then 2 wild card players as well. So if Domas is looking like he's at least going to make the All-Star reserves, we can almost bank on that. Lauri Markkanen will probably be the first selection. Domas will probably be the second. Lauri, is the hometown guy. It's going to be played in Utah this year. Makes sense for Lauri to earn that, which he has. He definitely has. We've seen Lauri give Kings work twice this year. And almost hit a game winner in Utah. So I think we can all acknowledge that Lauri Markkanen is deserving of that all-star bid. And the other one's kind of up in the air. I mean, you got your Anthony Davis, who's still out. I believe he's supposed to play today, actually. I think today is supposed to be AD's miraculous return. We'll see how long that one lasts. But if I had to pick 3 front court players, those would probably be it. I'd imagine how AD was playing before his injury, and how he'll play in the next couple weeks will kind of solidify that. But if I had to guess right now, the 3 remaining front court players to be named on reserves would be Lauri Markkanen, Anthony Davis, and Domantas Sabonis in no particular order. And if I had to guess the backcourt, this is kind of where the for the Kings side of things, the conversation gets fun and gets spicy. Because as I mentioned, it's 2 front court, or 2 guards. I'm just going to say 2 guards get selected as the starters. 2 more guards get selected for the reserves. And then I mentioned the 2 wild card spots. The 2 guards that are selected right now, Luka and Steph, were pretty much locks. There was no way De'Aaron was going to get more recognition from fans, media, players, doesn't matter. Luka and Steph were going to be those 2. De'Aaron's kind of in this next tier of players, and if I'm being honest, he's probably, towards the bottom end, especially more in terms of notoriety and, being a public figure, not only for fans, but frankly, media, it matters as well. That's where Ja Morant, you're probably going to see him definitely. I would almost guarantee Ja is an all-star reserve. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's averaging over 30 points per game this season, has OKC hovering around 500 right now near the all-star break. I think Shai is just about as good of a lock as Ja is as well. So those are probably going to be the 2 other backcourt reserves or guard reserves named. So De'Aaron at this point is kind of hoping on a wild card or an injury replacement. And right now, the people that I have in contention for this West wild card, Damian Lillard, who might have been looking on the outside in of this conversation a week ago, but I don't know if everybody saw this or not. Damian Lillard put himself a game the other day, had 50 points through 3 quarters, ended with 60. He now has 4 career 60-point games, which is 3rd all time behind James Harden, Kobe Bryant. Actually, it's 4th all time. Kobe Bryant and Wilt Chamberlain.
Ball hogs.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Which one of those? I mean, I would say, I don't know if I would consider Dame a ball hog, but the guys above him, James, absolutely.
Yeah, Wilt can ball hog all day.
Wilt,
that's fine.
Wilt is just like maybe one day we'll do a whole episode just on Wilt numbers because like that fool has some of the most absurd numbers that you will ever see. Just ever. He has untouchable records. People thought that Kareem's score total career points would never be touched. There are Kareem records that will literally never be touched. But right now, as I mentioned, for the wild cards, I've got Dame, I've got Devin Booker, who also hasn't played in a month and doesn't look like he's going to play anytime soon. So maybe that's where De'Aaron can kind of get his foot in the door, and then De'Aaron Fox. And only 2 of those guys can make it between Damian Lillard, Devin Booker, and De'Aaron Fox. You ask my opinion, I think it's Dame and Fox. De'Aaron's been incredibly healthy all year. He's been a 1B to Sabonis's 1A. I think they're both equally important in their own ways. I think Domas does a great job of setting the tone and keeping the offense moving, but then you listen to their ESPN interview, and Domas will freely admit, fourth quarter time, my main objective is get that guy the ball. And that's what wins them games. So maybe it's like Domas carries them for 3 quarters, and then Fox takes them the rest of the way. So I would say De'Aaron's been just as important to winning as just about anybody else. Dame and Booker have had fantastic individual seasons, but I just think for what it means for the city of Sacramento, the fact that the Kings are playing well after so many years of disappointment, you got to reward it in some way. And I think the perfect way of doing that is just really having All-Star Weekend be all about the Kings. Let's get Keegan Murray in the rookie-sophomore game, maybe Davion Mitchell also. Let's get Kevin Huerter in the three-point shootout. Frankie has been pushing for Keegan Murray potentially in the three-point shootout. If not Kevin Huerter, he's already going to be there. It makes sense. We're not going to get anybody in the dunk contest. That's just not happening. And then, let's get De'Aaron and Domas in the All-Star game. Let's make every single event about the Sacramento Kings. That's what I'm down. That's what I'm looking for. And can't really wait for that. I mentioned we have some apologies, not we. I have some people that I need to apologize to on air. Hear that and more right here on Sacktown Sports 1140 Kings Weekly.
All right, chat. We're here. You hear me, Chris?
We're here. We are live.
All right, we're here live just for you, chat.
Yes, just for you,
you
chat.
guys shouldn't be hearing the commercials. I don't think you are. Do you want to talk about the poll real quick, or you want to talk to people in the chat? What do you want to do?
Let's look at the poll. I haven't even seen the poll. What's the poll?
So it was, what's the confidence level of the Kings on this road trip?
Oof.
And I kind of just gave it 4 levels, just made it a little fun. They'll
Yeah.
crush it. I think they'll do well. I'm a little nervous. I'm scared of what's to come, which I don't think anyone should be scared.
Right.
And no one is. No one voted that. Most of the votes are going, they're split between I'm a little nervous, they'll crush it. But most of the votes, the rest of them are going towards I think they'll do well. So people are feeling okay.
Right.
I imagine that it's a 7-game trip, right?
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that equates to like 5-2.
That's what I've said.
Yeah.
So I have said, and that's what I was going to say initially, is I think all of these feelings need to have like a record attached to it. So they'll crush it. To me, that's 6-1, 7-0. If you perform over expectation, that would be crushing it.
Riley's saying no worse than 4-3, and I gotta agree.
That's what I've been saying.
I mean, if it's not 4-3, I think you're in a I think you're in a little bit of a slump then.
Yes.
Especially after the loss to Toronto.
Yeah, I think people are they have their ears perked up a little bit right now, where it's like, yeah, okay, I thought we were like really good, really fun, and then they lose to Philadelphia, who doesn't have Harden, doesn't have Embiid. They play well against Memphis, but then the Toronto game was so deflating. I think that's the most deflating game of the year, especially coming off the Monty extension, the big win against Memphis, and then just for them to absolutely take a turd against the Raptors the other day was not fun. I think they split in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
I think after that they play. Hold on, I'm pulling up the schedule right now.
Okay.
So they play.
We're getting tight on time here.
Okay.
Just for the commercials. Mike's asking if we're going to the Hornets game tonight. I'm not. I've never been to I was gonna go to a Davis basketball game. Never been to a Sac State game.
No.
Not going to be there. I don't think Jason calls those either.
He does not. No, that's the only reason to go. If Jason
a couple people have mentioned putting Malik in the dunk contest.
Yeah. I think he would be the best candidate, but in terms of like a flashy. Like he can probably go between the legs, but I can't see Malik really like going crazy.
How tall is he?
6'3", 6'4", 6'3", probably I would list him as. Which, you know, he definitely has some crazy hops. It's just more of like dunking is really a skill. Like you got to kind of know what you're doing. It takes a level of creativity. And Malik's a really good in-game dunker and can really throw it down with his verticality, but I don't think he's not very creative.
We got one more real quick before we go back. Sam, I already know your answer to this. Is Metu a crazy idea for the dunk contest?
Yes, it is. It's an absolutely crazy idea. He has vertical, but not dunk contest kind of.
Okay, all right. We're going to come back here.
Yeah.
Mitchell with 6 on the shot clock. Circling, now drives, finds the seam, kicks it back to Sabonis. Quick pass to Herter. Corner 3 to beat the buzzer. He's got the triple and the Kings have the lead. Boy, that was a terrific sequence in terms of ball movement and getting a good look before time expired. An 8-0 run for Sacramento.
All right. It's time for me to man up here. I like to say that I will be the first person to admit when I'm wrong. And I'm not ready to say I'm completely wrong on this. But I would be a fool to not acknowledge the fact that I was chief, I was the bus driver of the Harrison Barnes get him out of town. And it's not because necessarily Harrison Barnes is a bad basketball player. I just thought that the Kings could get that was the most clear spot for an upgrade for the Kings. They just drafted Keegan Murray, who seems to be their maybe he could play the 3, but potentially it seems like more of a 4 of the future. Domas is going to be the center. They just traded for Kevin Herter and Malik Monk. That position seems locked down. De'Aaron Fox has a stranglehold on the starting point guard position. So naturally, my eyes went to the expiring contract, the guy who plays what I feel like is the most valuable position. I just think if you have, if you look at the best teams in the league, you got your long, huge Paul Georges, your Kevin Durant, your Kawhi Leonards, LeBron James, go down the list of all the great threes that have just dominated the game. I think that if you have a fantastic person like somebody provides that much size and yet guard ability, I think that's like one of the most important positions that you can have in terms of just being like setting yourself above everybody else. You look at how Boston has essentially built their team around having 2 of those guys and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Like it's really, really tough to match up with a team that has a ton of long rangy guys. Look at Toronto. Toronto just gave us work for this exact example.
Can I give you some advice?
Please. I'm rambling.
I think you're using your head too much. I think you need to use your heart more.
See, if I'm using my heart, I got in trouble the other day for the grades. I had some people get mad at me for the grades that I gave at the midseason report, and that was using my heart too much.
We could have done that for 3 hours.
We could have.
Yeah.
We really could have.
That was fun.
I just think, to me, Harrison was a clear spot of upgrade. But Harrison has just been too incredible. Shout out to Chad who said CW on skates. That's a great reference to Matt George. Harrison has just been too good to deny, especially since the turn of the new year. In the month of January so far, which has been 13 games, Harrison Barnes is averaging 20.4 points per game on 53% from the field, 51% from 3 on 6.7 attempts. Mind you, Harrison was shooting like in the low 30s for about 2 months, the first 2 months of the season, low 30s. It is now shooting 50% from 3 on 6.7 attempts. He's right up there at 40% now on the season, which is just absolutely where you want to be. That's where all the best shooters in the league tend to fall, is right around that 40% mark. And not only that, Coach Brown loves to get on Keegan for not being, just only being a shooter and trying to expand his game and do more than that. And, Harrison isn't a fantastic rebounder. He doesn't really move the ball much, doesn't tend to get more than 1 or 2 assists on a given night, doesn't necessarily block a lot of shots, doesn't necessarily get a lot of steals. But what he does do at a really, really high level, especially considering that, he's maybe the Kings' 4th or 5th option right now, is get to the free throw line. And that is so incredibly important. That's such a huge veteran thing for him to bring to this team. It's so on brand for him too, because it's just so settling. Like when things are maybe getting out of control, or if it's, 4th quarter and the Kings kind of need to slow the game down a little bit, Harrison just gets to the line so incredibly timely. He's averaging 5.3 free throw attempts per game, which is 3rd on the team behind De'Aaron and Domas. And he's knocking those down at an 87% clip.
The man hit 5 threes in a row to start the game.
He did.
If I'm not mistaken.
He absolutely did. And the Kings tied the NBA record for most threes in a quarter with 12. Harrison hit 5 of those things against Memphis.
Quick.
Incredible. I can't imagine being that hot. They were some heat checks there where he just got it and flung it up. He was just incredible. And a lot has been made about Harrison Barnes, the guy off the floor too. And, how much he matters to this team and what he brings as a leader and just as a man, honestly, as corny as that is to say, Harrison is just a consummate professional, the way he carries himself. He's an incredible guy. And here's actually what Doug Christie was on with, I believe it was Cattles and Rami earlier this week. And this is what DC had to say about what Harrison brings to this team.
I think that he is the soul and spirit of our team. I think he is the professional example of what you want in Kings basketball on the court and off the court, as working out, as taking care of his body, as arriving early and staying late, all the things that you want in a basketball player to represent our organization. I would say that is who Harrison Barnes is.
If I could just add to that, the Kings the other day on Thursday had their Kingpin bowling event where all the Kings players and coaches come out and they bowl with members of the community or people who bought tickets to the event. And guess who was the first player there? All the players drove themselves to this event. First player there who showed up before I even got there.
Deladova.
Yeah. Well, Delhi was second. Delhi was second. Delhi was the second person who arrived. Very inconspicuous. Just wore a black hoodie, black pants. Couldn't even notice that he was a player, really. Harrison Barnes. Harrison Barnes was the answer. Harrison Barnes showed up incredibly prompt, was there first, and just was fantastic the entire time. So that absolutely speaks to Harrison's maturity and just what he brings to this team. And, not only the on the floor steadying presence that he is, but also off the floor as well, just always setting the example. Sass right here in the YouTube chat says, trade Barnes while value is high. That's the devil on my shoulder. That is, I hear it. I definitely hear it. And I am, half of my mind is definitely there. I think that there is absolute value to trading Harrison right now while he's kind of restored his value. I think the problem is, and it's been the problem for really the past year and a half with Harrison, and it's a great problem to have, especially if you're Harrison Barnes, is if you take Harrison Barnes off this team, you need somebody to do the things that Harrison Barnes does for you in return. And so there's really no point in getting rid of him unless you have a clear and obvious replacement. And that's just not something a lot of teams are doing. Not a lot of teams are giving away Harrison Barnes kind of guys. Maybe you can get a younger, more potential, less, and I'm specifically thinking Kyle Kuzma is maybe a higher potential but different kind of player. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you take Harrison Barnes off this team, where are you going to get a guy who can shoot at a high level, who can defend all of those other threes, the great threes that I was mentioning, the Paul Georges, the LeBrons, all those guys? Who's going to be able to match up on those guys? Because I don't think Keegan's ready yet. and who's just going to be a reliable guy that you can depend on every single night to be consistent on and off the floor. That's really hard to find. Really, really hard to find. And that's why, at the end of the day, I just think, I can't believe I'm saying this, I think Harrison Barnes is kind of irreplaceable for this team right now. Right now. I will say right now. And he's playing way too well for the Kings to just ship him off for the mere sake that he's an expiring contract.
Takes a big man to apologize in front of this many people.
Right.
That's impressive.
You know, I like to consider myself quite a morally just man.
Yes.
I also need to apologize for Keegan Murray, but we don't have time for that. So sorry, Keegan, you get an apology. Coming up, we're going to preview what is to come for Kings basketball. They have a long road trip and only 10 more games until the All-Star break. We're going to break all that down and more right here on Kings Weekly, right here on Sacktown Sports 1140. All right, Nate, how long is this break?
All right. Back to the chat.
How long do we have?
We have 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Oh, beautiful. Let's
we got time.
Stretch our legs.
You can see
here,
the chat. You got it up there?
I can see the chat. Yeah, I see it. Let's see here.
Double A says HB is that guy, and yeah, HB is that guy.
Yeah, he's really just been incredible. Like I've been a huge hater for anyone who's listened to me. Like it's more just I just feel like Harrison. I've always just said he's like the definition of average, and a lot of people take that as an insult. I get it. I understand why that it is an insult, but I literally just think he is like the most middle of the road small forward you can get. You can clearly do a whole lot worse than Harrison Barnes, but you can definitely do a lot better than Harrison
Anything
Barnes.
Better is going to require quite a bit to get or to pay, whatever that means. We got Tyler here in the chat. You're a Plumlee guy, right, Chris? We talked about
Plumlee.
To
an extent. Definitely not to the extent that other most Kings fans
wants Mason Plumlee, so Nick Cattles wants.
Yes.
We went into that yesterday. Just I think really just because his passing ability, right, Tyler? I don't know if you feel the same way. I don't know if you want to throw that in chat, but yeah, his passing ability for a big like that is important. But we were talking yesterday too, like could Sabonis and Plumlee play together at the same time? Probably not.
Right. I think that's interesting. I think no. I think just especially with how they play Domas right now, I think if they were to bring in especially somebody to Plumlee's quality, that would ideally be so that Domas can get more rest, not necessarily play just as much or play minutes with somebody else, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I think Plumlee is coming in and his only minutes will be when Domas is not on the floor.
I think the argument there is that Fox not having to play Fox and Sabonis so much together.
Right. Staggering their minutes. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And
I'm staggering trying to say that.
I think that is the ultimate goal, especially if you can, Tyler says it right here. If you can run the same kind of offense as when Domas is on the floor, that's the biggest issue right now when Richaun Holmes comes in, is Richaun is almost exclusively a pick and roll player.
Mm-hmm.
And at the moment, that's not how the Kings run. The Kings run a free flowing motion offense where you give the center the ball in the high post and then just everything moves around it. Somebody's cutting, someone's coming around he needs to set a screen, maybe a dribble handoff, those kind of things. And that's where Plumlee really excels. He's a great screen setter. He's a great passer. And he's a great rebounder.
Let's touch on this Sass one more.
Terrible free throw shooter.
We got about 1 minute here. Sass says Keegan and Barnes lineup lacks a true power forward. Does that matter?
I don't know if the power forward position even exists anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like when you say a power forward.
Sass, give us like 3 true power forwards.
I think like the last, like
if you can,
the last like merger of like a old school power forward with a new school is like a Paul Millsap. And I don't think those exist anymore. I just think nowadays you run 2 forwards out there. You run Boston runs Grant Williams at their 4. That's kind of what a 4 is nowadays. It's just an oversized 3. Bruce Brown plays 4 sometimes. Aaron Gordon, I guess, is kind of like your modern version of a 4. And if that's your version, John Collins is an ideal 4.
Yeah.
It's kind of what you're hoping to get and what kind of offense you run. I think Keegan is the perfect 4 for this kind of offense.
We got to go back. I'm sorry.
No,
we're coming back here. 8 seconds.
All good.
Fox drives to the free throw line, swings to Monk, feeds to the corner to Kevin Herter, who's in. Herter, no look pass cross court. Keegan Murray going for his 4th 3 of the night, and he gets it. Well, that's been one bright spot. Herter straight away, guarded by Trent Jr. Drives it to the right wing, launches off the bounce, scores it. Kevin Herter knocking down his 5th three-pointer of the ball game. He has 17. For Herter, it's the 7th time this year to have 5 or more threes in a game.
Shout out, Nate. Is this your music choice?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a banger. This takes me back to high school instantly.
Herter and Keegan are just trying to function, dude. Just let them function.
Oh my gosh.
There's just like music beds of just tons of different songs. I'm like, all right.
I ain't got nothing to
E40.
say. I'm just out here trying to function.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's incredible. That got me. Whew. Kings Weekly, we're having fun here on a Saturday. If you are not already, please be sure to join us in the YouTube chat. We're having a lot of fun. We're doing the Deuce and Mo thing. We are talking live throughout the breaks. So if you want to get a full hour of content, please be sure to head on over to the Sacktown Sports YouTube channel where we stay live through commercial breaks. Fun stuff. Fun stuff. We're just trying to function. That's all really anyone.
We're
here.
not even trying annore.
We're
We're
not,
just
no.
we're doing it.
Functioning.
We're doing it.
Look at us. Who thought we'd be here? Not me. Let's do what we always do here for our last segment. Let's look ahead forward to the week of Kings basketball. This time we're actually going to look a little bit ahead further than this current week. My man Hunter Patterson. Excuse me, Hunter Patterson of The Athletic. Great guy. Just wrote a really good article about the Beam and how the Beam came to be and just Sacramento's culture around it. Hunter tweeted this out. The Kings have 10 games remaining before the All-Star break, and only 3 of these teams currently have winning records. Considering 8 games are on the road and 2 are at home, it'll be interesting to see where Sacramento stands by the end of this stretch. And if I could just list off the games until the All-Star break here real quick for you, there is the back-to-back games against Minnesota that they have here on the road. Mind you, these next 7 games are all on the road. It goes Minnesota on Saturday, Minnesota on Monday, San Antonio on Wednesday, Indiana without Tyrese Halliburton on Friday, at New Orleans Pelicans on Sunday. Who knows who's going to be available for the Pelicans? Will CJ McCollum play? Will Brandon Ingram play? Will Zion play? These are questions on any given night for the New Orleans Pelicans. I don't think Zion is supposed to be ready by then. Then they play back-to-back against Houston the following week, back-to-back against Dallas after that, and then close with the last game before the All-Star break at Phoenix. Me and Nate were talking a little bit earlier. I believe that was off air on the live stream about.
We should let everyone know that if you're listening on the radio, that if you listen on YouTube, we'll interact with you the best we can in the chat. Get a little crazy in there.
It does get very crazy in the chat on Saturday. Something about the weekend. People are just feeling free, feeling loose. So we have fun in the during the commercials, and like I mentioned, you can interact with us during the break. But we talked about just our expectation for the records. For the Kings coming up here on this 7-game road trip. Again, the 7-game road trip, 2 at Minnesota, 2 at Houston, San Antonio, Indiana, New Orleans. I think 5-2 is feeling good. Like if the Kings, I suspect, this is how I suspect it'll go. Split at Minnesota, just because Minnesota's playing well. They have some talent. Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert. They have length. D'Angelo Russell has been a Kings killer in past. I don't think we need to mention when he was in Brooklyn and came back from, I believe, 30 in the fourth quarter and beat the Kings. That one still is burned into my head. But Minnesota is a problem for Sacramento, especially in Minnesota as well. That's been a problem for Sacramento in the past. I suspect that the Kings will probably split that. At San Antonio needs to be a win. We killed the Spurs when they came here earlier in the season. This one, San Antonio is not. They're a bottom feeder in the West right now. Kings need to take care of business. Pacers have really, really struggled this season without Tyrese Halliburton in their lineup. He isn't going to be back by the time the Kings play them. Then I mentioned New Orleans. You don't know what you're going to get against New Orleans. That's going to be a tough one. I'm just going to mark that down as a loss. I'm going to assume that they're going to have 2 of their 3 main guys going in New Orleans. Kind of just like they do have a day in between that and the Indiana game, but that's the first night of a back-to-back playing in New Orleans and then the following day at Houston. I could see that New Orleans game being a loss, but then you have to take care of business against the worst team in the NBA,
a team that's trying to lose,
a team that is actively
and they're doing good job. They're doing a good job at it,
doing a great job of it. Houston Rockets, who look like an AAU team at points so far this year. The Kings took care of business 2 games against them at their home floor, or at the Kings' home floor. Now the Kings travel to Houston to try and take on the Rockets, and that is the 7-game road trip. Again, 5-2. That's what I expect. If you do better than that, maybe I you exceed my expectations. Maybe I start getting a little excited about how this second half can go. 4-3. That's probably like the realistic expectation.
I literally think 5-2 is realistic.
I think it is too. It's just like, you don't know how life ends up happening. It's
not even life is the Kings.
Yeah, exactly. You just lose sometimes, and who knows how things go down. But
do you want to get a little fun here at the end? As we got a couple.
No,
minutes
let's
left?
stay dry.
Stay dry. Yeah, we'll stay nice and boring. We got a little chat question for you, just real quick. If we can go back, if we kill this question early. Who do you think wins in a fight?
Shannon Sharp?
5 Dylan Brooks or 3 Shannon Sharps?
And
that comes from Matthew in the chat. Matt in the chat.
Let's check the tail of the tape here. Shannon Sharp.
Just looking at Shannon Sharp, I'm taking him.
Yeah.
And he's got that NFL mentality that is way different than NBA mentality.
100%. NBA players are notoriously hold me back guys. They're stature-wise, they're bigger than most, but they tend to be softer.
I need to see Dylan Brooks' size.
So Dylan Brooks is listed at 6'6", 225.
Okay, so that's probably 6'5". He's probably a little shorter than that, right? That's how the NBA does it?
I would say he's probably 6'5", probably not even 225, honestly.
Okay, so we're looking at about 1,000 pounds altogether.
Shannon Sharp listed at 6'2", so doesn't have the height advantage. Listed at 228. If I had to imagine, that was a playing weight. If I had to guess now, Shannon's probably 250, 260 plus.
Hey, there's no regulations when you're not in the NFL. You can take whatever you want.
Right.
I'm not saying anything.
No, but Shannon's...
he's shredded.
Shannon ain't messing around. Shannon was ready to go against Steven Adams. He wasn't actually, but he looks like he could at least go like 30 seconds. With
it. 3 Shannons. Tyler in the chat saying 3 Shannons.
I'm going to go 3 Shannons. I just think Shannon is like, I think you really pointed at the key is the mentality part of it, where Shannon is a crazy dude. Like, not unstable, but just, he has that like Ray Lewis, like, fire to him where it's like you might not want to.
He's impressive too because he works with a 70-year-old man who's constantly pushing his buttons and doesn't rip his head off.
Great restraint. Even though the other day I thought it was the end of Undisputed when him and Skip
they're setting that. That's got to be for the show, right? That's got to be. They can probably
Shannon seemed pretty legitimately upset.
Yeah,
I don't know. That was interesting. I'm gonna go with three Dylan Brooks. No, I'm sorry, 3 Shannon Sharps over 5.
Okay, that's a good guess.
I think Dylan is also a fake tough guy. Please don't come at me,
Dylan. Foxy in the chat. I can't say his other name. It has to do with Sabonis. You've seen the jersey, I'm sure.
Right.
He thinks Buddy Hield scores 70 on us and the Pacers lose, which would be a very Buddy Hield game.
That is, obviously maybe not 70, but let's
35, maybe.
Buddy,
I could see that.
Look, let's put some respect on Buddy Hield's name. He's had a terrific season so far this year. He's averaging 17.7 points per game on 42% from three. He's taking 9 threes a game. Of course he
is. Of course, Henry Turner is notorious for bringing up how much Buddy loves to shoot the ball, and it's very evident with that stat.
He's shooting 9 threes a game and shooting 42%. That's crazy. That is absolutely absurd. So, Buddy, I mean, that's a real possibility. The Kings really don't focus on limiting 3-point attempts from opponents. They do actually. I think they're top 5 in terms of opponents 3-point attempted, but it's not built into their defense to prevent perimeter shots. They actually really want it. Mike Brown's constantly talking about protecting the paint. If anything, they sell out to protect the paint, and they leave shooters open, and they'll fly out on them later. But Buddy's gonna have quite a bit of open looks, and we all know that Buddy is definitely the type of dude to hold a grudge, hold a vengeance, and especially if the King or if his team's gonna lose anyways, he's gonna go out swinging.
I gotta bring something up about that too, and I know Kings fans are probably on my side here. I'll be on NBA Reddit or, looking at comments on Bleacher Report, Instagram, whatever. And whenever the Halliburton trade comes up and, we get trashed for trading Halliburton away, whatever, everyone, the Kings, it's a fair trade. I think we've settled on that. We did weeks ago that, it worked for both teams. But people are like, oh, they shouldn't have dealt Buddy Hield in that. And I just think that's fans not watching Kings games, because why would you? But if you watch those games, he would be a ball handler when that's not who he is. No. He wanted to be a ball handler. He would shoot just ridiculous shots, just like low basketball IQ shots, and it wasn't going to work. So I just want to put that out there in the ether.
Absolutely.
That I was so stoked when Buddy got traded.
Yeah.
Because it was time. It just wasn't working here anymore. And it's nothing against him as a person.
Right.
It's just it wasn't working. It wasn't going to work here on this team.
Right.
And everyone got what they wanted, I feel like.
Yes, I completely echo everything that you said. I mean, the bad shots, the early threes in the shot clock within like 10 seconds of, by the 14-second mark in the shot clock, Buddy has already taken a 3 where no passes were made or anything like that. You mentioned his ball handling. I don't know if that was a him thing, if that was a Luke thing. It shouldn't have happened at all. Buddy doesn't need to put the ball on the floor at all. He needs
critical turnovers. He wasn't a guy who could handle the ball very well.
He was also notoriously known as the my bad guy, and constantly in post-game press conferences, you would hear of no more my bad. We can't have people saying my bad. We can't have my bads. Like no more my bads. And that just being a direct shot at Buddy. And I have not heard my bad guy in about a year, which lines up almost perfectly.
To be fair, a lot of that team is gone. But that was, I guess we're coming up on a year of him being gone. And I don't think anyone regrets it. I know he was always mouthing off a little bit about the Kings, and that's fine. I get it. It's rough being here. Unless you're here now, it's awesome.
We should really
we got about a minute left.
We shouldn't throw a celebration because it's not like we finesse somebody, but there needs to be something that we do on that. February 8th is the day that that trade went down. Something, I guess maybe we can wait a couple of years to see how it really all turned out, but something needs to be made of that day because it was just such a shocking, polarizing day in Kings history that there's going to be a lot of revisionist history, a lot of people going back and saying, however it ends up. I think however it ends up playing out, a lot of people mysteriously are going to have that take of, if the Kings signed Domas to a 4-year, $100 million plus extension, well, I don't know, whatever. They signed Domas long-term. People are going to be like, oh, I knew it. I always wanted, people were crazy for complaining about Halliburton. I knew Sabonis was going to be good. And then, if Domas leaves next offseason, the Kings just doing what the Kings do, and they'll always be bad, and this will always be how it is. So
that's
that's how it goes.
That's how it goes.
People always like to, no matter what, people are
part of being a
right.
fan. It's
not
part
like
of the job.
right. Except not like me, who is incredibly accountable and
Yeah, you would just apologize to everyone today.
I did. Very big on me. Hopefully next week we won't have anything to apologize for. Mention the road trip. Dare I say it's an easy one. Let's hope that the Kings can come out on top.
You shouldn't have said that.
I know. I've been saying it too, which is like I feel like it's just such.
We're not at that point yet.
It's bad juju to just assume that the Kings will take care of business. But,
Double A says you're the my bad guy of 1140. That's not true. That's
there's
me.
No way
dude.
that's true.
If anyone knows, I'm definitely the my bad guy of 1140 for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. I'll take that moniker.
For the my bad guy, Nate. My name is Chris Watkins. Thank you all so much for listening. I'm gonna say the Kings go 4-1 this week. Should be a good one. See you next week right here on Sacktown Sports 1140.